And away we go. It's the DFS early bird from Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockren along with you on this Wednesday morning, getting ready for an 11-game NBA slate, a deep one here. Don't forget the NBA season is spread out more so than it's been in the past. We're not going to see as many big slates, and we're not going to see as many tiny slates as we've seen in past years in the NBA. We saw a better schedule last year from a DFS perspective. We should still see more of the same this year, but 11 games here on a Wednesday, plenty to dig into. We're going to go position by position, get back to our roots here on a new podcast as named the DFS Early Bird. But those who have been along for the ride with Dave and I for 5 years now, we'll get back to position by position here. DFS Early Bird's a promo code over on Awesemo.com. One word to get you one free week. Dave, how the hell are you doing?
5 years, man.
Yeah.
5 years.
And what's funny is I still have a child who doesn't sleep, which is where we started this whole thing. So I luckily have stopped procreating. But
Smart move.
Yeah, best decision I've made. I love my kids. I don't want anyone to think otherwise. But nonetheless, it's been 5 years of doing podcasts, figuring it out, and entertaining the focals.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm just happy to be back to this position by position stuff. I don't mind going game by game, but that's so much easier to do once you start getting into the news. You know, later in the day once you're doing the show, game by game is definitely easier from a baseball standpoint. From baseball standpoint, game by game works. Position by position for podcasts just makes life a little bit easier, a little bit more of a simplistic breakdown for the foundational type plays here. And we've already got a bunch of questionable plays and injuries. I mean, you have Ben Simmons who was held out yesterday, and then Robert Covington, of course, with a foul with 1.8 seconds left, and an N1 on Griffin, who dropped 50. I mean, look, never should have been able to drive into the lane like that to begin with, but no surprise that Covington is the reason that he gets to the free throw line. Don't get me started. I'm already started. What's it matter? Chris Paul, 2-game suspension, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So we've got one more without him. We've got one more without Rajon Rondo.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one more without Brandon Ingram. Actually, no, he got 4
two more.
games.
Yeah, 2 more.
Yeah, he got 4 games. So looking at all of these injuries here, looks like we're going to get
I mean, come on, don't leave out the best part. Chris Dunn. You got Cameron Payne. Cameron Payne action, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, looking at some of these injuries, there are some definite notable ones. I mean, the Chris Dunn 4 to 6 weeks is pretty significant. We'll definitely get into what's going to go on there. I mean, as you mentioned, Cameron Payne probably going to get some work. You'll see some Blakeney, I think, just keeps playing the same minutes. Actually, no, I was wondering what would happen with him, but then he lost like almost all of his minutes when Dunn returned. So he'll probably play. He went from 30 to 22 to 5. So that makes a difference, but he's just a pure chucker. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, he's a guy that I have pegged as a potential breakout candidate. Mentioned him and Taurean Prince before the season as 2 guys that I could see having breakout seasons. Hollis-Jefferson will make his debut. So it looks like we're going to have him at 5,500 in a pretty good matchup against this Cleveland team. So outside of that, Marcus Chris doesn't really matter. Nene, trying to find some other ones that are actually worth noting. I think that's am I missing anyone else?
No,
Andrew Wiggins is questionable.
Yeah,
too.
It was Wiggins and Whiteside were the 2 other names.
Whiteside's probable, yeah.
That I was sort of tracking coming into this. John Collins is out. I think he's out for a while, 6 games before being reevaluated. So he has an ankle injury. So John Collins out for the Atlanta Hawks. Again, that's a team that's running a lot because they're bad. So, you can look for some potential value there. Is Dwight Howard back? He's not traveling, so no, he's not. He's out too.
Yeah, and this was a thing. It was funny because everything seemed cool up until the preseason, and then it's like, all right, this is kind of strange, and then it just got worse and worse. So I could see this being a situation where Dwight just remains out for a while.
And as we record, I don't know if I'm a mega millionaire as of yet. I don't have my tickets next to me, so I don't know if I've won $1.6 billion or not. I'll let you guys know in the morning. If I do win, and if I have won by the time you listen to this, I'll still do the podcast. I mean, I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, you're a good man. You're a good man. You better put some money in that to advertising too.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be buying DraftKings. Anyway, oh my God, imagine that. Like, imagine that meeting. Hey, Jason, I have an offer for you. Just go out of business. Here's a check. Anyway, I'd probably buy FanDuel to put them out of business. But here's the deal. We're going to go 11 games, position by position. Dave laid out a lot of the groundwork here on suspensions and injuries. But even further, don't forget, as always, Osmo.com does still have the deep dive that you guys may have gotten used to over there at FanVice. For those of you who listen to us over there, also have Josh's projections. You have the formerly known FanVice, which is Andrew Barron, aka Hot Magic, which is such an awkward username, Andrew, by the way. But his projections, you have Osmo's grades available over there at Osmo.com. I mentioned earlier, use the promo code EARLYBIRD to get a free week. You get free everything except for Fantasy Cruncher, so you can check out all of what we have going on behind the paywall. Live shows throughout the day. You have the strategy show. You have the deeper dive, I should say, and then you have live up till lock with typically Spags, Chris Spags, and Fast Eddie Fear, as it were. So let's get cracking here. Point guard first. Houston and Utah is James Harden's matchup. You have him as your highest priced point guard at 11-4. We can talk about him, obviously, at shooting guard. Same goes for Steph Curry in the matchup with Washington. John Wall, Kemba Walker, who has been a usage monster to start the year for the Charlotte Hornets. And then we get into Booker, Oladipo, Donovan Mitchell, Kyle Lowry, who's had a good start to the year, Levine, and on down the road. And throw Trae Young into sort of the 7K and above mix here. Lots of options always at point guard, guys who drive a lot of fantasy value here. Who are some of your favorites as we start position by position here?
Yeah, look, it's a really deep slate. And one of the things here is, I mean, if Ben Simmons is out, that makes a really big difference, because let's just take a look at the box score from yesterday. Granted, it was a overtime game against the Pistons, but we saw Markelle Fultz start. He played 21 minutes. And he did produce, well over a fantasy point per minute. I think he had around 24, 25 fantasy points in 21 minutes. Not bad. But the problem is that it's very difficult to trust his minutes. And then Landry Shamet played 24 minutes and did virtually nothing. Interesting that he started. But having Redick off the bench has actually not been the worst thing. He scored 30 points and 6 for 15 on three-pointers. He attempted 21 shots with Simmons out in 37 minutes. So Redick actually, not that we're talking point guards, but being that the fact that Simmons could be out means that Redick, is going to get a ton of work.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing here, the problem is that Fultz minutes have been really up and down. It's tough to tell what we're getting. But if Simmons remains out, McConnell is still going to be your guy. He played 32 minutes, even though he came off the bench, which isn't a bad thing, because that's going to stagger his minutes with some of the higher usage guys, at least a little bit. He is $4,000 on DraftKings. If Simmons is out, it is a tougher matchup against Milwaukee, but McConnell is just one of those guys that can put up the numbers at 4,000. What do you really need from him? What did he have? Like 27 fantasy points, 26 or so yesterday at 4K. And he can do better than that. He'll probably play 30 minutes. So when you're talking some value guys, you have that working for you. Other value, I don't want to say he's a value play, but I just really like what I've been seeing from De'Aaron Fox. I mean, I remember tweeting in his rookie season how much I loved this guy, that he has the potential to be really special. And point guards take some time to develop, right? And last night he had a tough game against Denver. They've actually defensively have looked better than expected. especially at the guard position. But I like De'Aaron Fox at 6,600. It's a really fair price point. It's a nice value. He's had 3 of 4 games really solid, 2 of them above 40 fantasy points. Not only is he getting shots up, but the peripherals have been there as well. I think that's really strong value. And of course, Zach LaVine. I mean, I hate Nick Batum is a long-armed wing defender that can make things difficult. But LaVine is not some guy that's just going to, spot up and jack up threes. This is somebody that will knife to the basket, that is going to drive, especially with Chris Dunn out. I like that quite a bit. Zach LaVine averaging 10 drives per game this season. By the way, please forgive me if I'm going shooting guard, point guard. At this point, everyone's multi-position eligibility. So it just, it makes things relatively difficult. So, just roll with me here. At the top, well, let's stick with value for a second here, because I think we do have a little bit to work with. One guy that's remotely interesting is somebody like Shelvin Mack in a good matchup against Sacramento. He's been getting good run. And if you have Garrett Temple out right now, it looks like he's probable, so we'll see. But then you also have Dylan Brooks, who's been logging, around 15, 16 minutes per game. JaMychal Green is out. That Chandler Parsons is already out. So you're probably going to see a decent amount of 2-guard minutes for Shelvin Mack. You could get that playing time up there to 30 minutes. Now, not a high upside guy, but if you need someone that's just dirt cheap, he's there. There's a lot. Let me just work through it a little bit more. You had mentioned Cameron Payne. That obviously makes a decent amount of sense here. If you break down this backcourt without Chris Dunn, you have Cameron Payne, and then you have Arcidiacono. Damn it, that's a tough one. Ryan Arcidiacono. He's a Villanova guy. I should know this.
He is.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's another one. The minutes are my expectation is that no one is going to get their 30 minutes, right? But I think Cameron Payne is probably the one that could see the most. And, he played 18 minutes with Chris Dunn on the court and then averaged about 25 minutes with him off the court. He's also pretty cheap. I mean, the truth is, Dan, there's a decent amount of value already. It'll be interesting to see how much opens up. But then even in the 6K range, like with the injuries to Memphis, not that these are a lot of high usage guys, but I mean, Mike Conley is 6,700. For the first time in a long time, Mike Conley actually looks healthy.
Yep.
And I really like seeing that. His 26.7% usage rate, assuming it stays around there for the rest of the season, would be the highest of his career. And we like that, right? We like the high usage. Mike Conley's a guy that I just think at that price tag is too appealing. Someone else to go back to that had a really, really rough game last time out, but this matchup is just too sexy to ignore from a tournament standpoint is Dennis Smith Jr. Garbage game last time, and he hasn't been great to start the year, but he played a season-high 31 minutes. This Atlanta Hawks backcourt defense is pure trash, Dan. They're just really bad. So I think on both sides of this, Trae Young and Dennis Smith Jr. make for really solid plays. And finally, Luka Doncic is moved out of the point guard spot. That needed to happen. I was really tired of seeing that, and I'm just glad it's not the case anymore. So here's how I'll wrap it up. As we talk, we already got to your value and your mid-range guys, because I think that's going to be really important. If you're looking at expensive options, I don't really think you need to go there, right? Like James Harden, well, we'll talk about Harden in a moment, but if you wanted to play John Wall against Golden State, fine, but he's kind of a low volatility 40 to 50 fantasy point guy. Stephen Curry, always fine play, but not someone that I really make a huge effort to get into lineups. If anything, I like LaVine at 7,400. I like De'Aaron Fox. I like Mike Conley. I think Kyle Lowry at 7,600 is a pretty solid play. I mean, all of those guys seem to make for really, really interesting options. And then, of course, you have to at least throw Devin Booker into the mix. This game should have a mass. It had 237 over-under for whatever that even means anymore. Like if it even matters anymore, I could hardly tell you. But I'm not too worried about Lonzo Ball's defense. I think you can see, and we're not going to be able to get to everybody, and we're not going to spend this much time on every position, but the point guard position definitely has a whole lot to offer, and we haven't even gotten to the likes of Lonzo Ball yet and so many other quality options in that 6K range.
It's a deep position on this slate, and obviously on a site like DK where you have MPE, it's going to be a lot of roster construction decisions of where you go and where you start the process of it. But there does seem to be early on here, as we look at it, some decent, if not good value where the likes of a Harden or Curry available at shooting guard does make a huge difference in the way you may start to piece some things together here. We'll talk shooting guard next. We've made mention over and over again about the over-unders. I don't want anyone to think that you should be a slave to Vegas, but even more so right now, to me, it's a bad time to solely rely on these over-unders because Vegas is getting ready, getting right themselves, is figuring out where NBA is going, positionless basketball, offense is obviously on the rise. So make sure you're doing the research beyond it. Small sample sizes to start the year are tough. But that is also why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing with Dave, with his write-ups and the shows. So stick close and make sure that you're not relying too much necessarily on what are fast-moving lines here in the NBA. If we move to shooting guard next.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, go.
Michael Carter-Williams is expected to start because James Ennis is out. But Eric Gordon actually.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Last game with Chris Paul out, but Michael Carter Williams is going to start. Keep in mind though, like Michael Carter Williams' value is derived almost entirely from when he's a ball handler. You're still not going to have much of that in this lineup, right? I mean, you have to look at James Harden just being an absolute ball hog. So even if Carter Williams, I think even if he starts, you probably get like 22 minutes. It's just very difficult for me to see a way in which he's able to do anything with the minutes that he's given. I just don't think that D'Antoni is going to trust him with the ball in his hands when you have a guy like James Harden. So yes, we need to point out that he's going to start, but how much that means, I'd put it to you this way. I'd rather play TJ McConnell at a $200 increase off the bench and see him be one of the primary ball handlers than Michael Carter Williams on a team where he probably won't touch the ball much at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a usage of 8, of 10. Like it's right. Just with all the different guys on that team who are going to shoot the ball first, whether starters minutes or not, the usage just will not be there for MCW on this slate. As we get over to shooting guard, it is intriguing always early in the season to see what players move around. You do have the obvious dual eligibility for the likes of Harden and Curry, which great. You do have Kawhi Leonard here at shooting guard at 8,700 on DK. Bradley Beal, obviously, a shooting guard, but you have DeRozan, Butler, Kawhi Leonard, all guys who I've always thought of as small forward first and small forward only, honestly. Are both all three shooting guard eligible here to start the early season. Doncic over to shooting guard, small forward, as Dave alluded to earlier. And then we make our way down to talk about the likes of Eric Gordon at 5,800 in this matchup with Utah. Wanted to make mention at the top. This is a Utah team that is very good defensively, and we know what they did last year. But it's also a Utah team that can play up in pace. Not to say this is a spot to necessarily chase after them, but I'm not necessarily afraid of Houston or afraid of Utah in this matchup simply because of the defensive upside that Utah shows. I like this game a lot. Obviously, Houston's team will play up in pace, and I think Utah can as well here. What do you make of shooting guard, and is my early season assumption about Utah at least leaning in the right direction?
Yeah, I think they're going to be forced to play up in pace to some extent, but you also have to keep in mind that this is a team that isn't going to be able to run with a lot of teams. And the reason for that is, well, let's put it this way. If Jingles continues to shoot like Klay Thompson, then yeah, maybe you will be able to play a little bit more in transition, a little bit more pace up basketball. But if he comes back down to earth, then you're going to have a little bit of an issue there, right? Because Rudy Gobert, as good as he is defensively, is not a guy that runs the court like the best of them. The same goes with a guy like Derek Favors. Jay Crowder's a 3-and-D type of guy. He can run, but not someone that's really going to contribute to pace-up basketball. So you have Donovan Mitchell. You have guys like Ricky Rubio. But this team isn't built to play pace-up. What they will look to do is slow teams down. Right now, they're 19th in pace. They're right in the middle of the road in defensive efficiency. I think that improves. But I think, look, is it if the question is it a team to be afraid of? The answer would be, well, what position are we talking about, right? If it's James Harden, then probably not. James Harden without Chris Paul, probably not. I mean, we've seen James Harden's production with Chris Paul off of the court. And, if you just started from last year, the numbers are outrageous. Chris Paul, with Chris Paul off the court, and mind you, there was a lot of staggering last year, which I liked a lot. I mean, that was important. That's what made both of these guys effective. But just pulling up the numbers now, James Harden with Paul off the court. Let's see, and this is for this includes this year as well. So with James Harden, his usage rate was 38%. Okay. But I remember saying this on Twitter a lot. His assist rate was 52%. So 38% usage, 52% assist rate. Now let's put Chris Paul on the court. His usage rate is James Harden's usage rate is 32%. So about a 6% decrease. And his assist rate drops to 33%. So a near 20% decrease in assist rate. So really, it doesn't matter what the matchup is. When Chris Paul is off the court and he's replaced by Eric Gordon, who will shoot, but generally is being assisted by James Harden, then you're really not that worried about it. So that's how I look at this. There's the Jazz are still not a team I love to pick on. It's not a spot where I'm like, oh, nice, I want to game stack it. Yep. But I do think that this game stays competitive, and I think that only works in Harden's favor. So that's where I'm at on that. I also think that Kawhi Leonard's in a good spot here too. I mean, Kawhi Leonard and Lowry have been the guys, and Lowry's done some deferring to Leonard early in the year. Leonard's going to have some games that are, around like 35, 38 fantasy points, but he also has monster upside. And I think his price point is pretty fair. I also think if you're talking about high total games, this is one that I expect. It's a 226.5. Wouldn't be surprised to see this one shoot above 235, 240. I think you see a lot of scoring here. This is a Minnesota defense that I have absolutely no faith in whatsoever. Just a bad defensive team. You're looking at pace early in the season. They're playing around the top 10 pace. I really like this game. And I think this is also a Toronto team that while they will play good defense, they're going to give up. You're going to give up points to Butler and to Wiggins and to Karl Anthony Towns. There's just too much firepower. I think this is a spot where Kawhi Leonard really puts up solid numbers. It's just, is he a must play? No, because it's tough to find the way to get Harden and Leonard and so many other great plays into your lineup. I think Doncic is in play once again. I mean, you're talking about a guy that among the Dallas Mavericks is really, leading or close to them in almost every category. Like it's really crazy, Dan. He's a rookie, but like him and Trae Young, these guys making immediate impacts. Doncic tied with Dennis Smith for the most drives per game on the team. If you look at passes per game and you filter by the Dallas Mavericks, it should come as no surprise that, now mind you, he's not the point guard, right? He's not the point guard, but potential assists, he's still third behind Barea and Dennis Smith and not far behind them. And then the most important one, in my opinion, is touches per game, because I want the players that I'm playing to be getting a lot of opportunities, not just spot up attempts. Touches per game, Doncic is second to only Dennis Smith, and that makes sense because Smith is the point guard. So Doncic is seeing a lot of opportunity, and his minutes, he's seeing a ton of minutes, 35, 30, or 36, 36, 32, a lot of field goal attempts. I mean, the volume is there, and at that point, that's really all that matters. I have to assume that that his usage rate is around 28%. Let's see, his usage rate right now is 26, but I expect that to climb. It's just not a team that has a lot of scores, Dan. So between him and Leonard and Harden and Levine, who I already mentioned, and Butler's going to see a lot of Kawhi Leonard treatment. So I think I would rather just pay down for Levine or Doncic or pay up for Harden or Leonard here. But once again, it's another good position. And I will throw out, here's one of my tournament plays that I like quite a bit. I think Victor Oladipo is a really enticing tournament option here. Danny Green is gone. He was a great, maybe not the best on-ball defender, but just still a very good wing defender. So whenever Oladipo is playing off the ball, when Collison is bringing it up the court, you'd have had a guy like Danny Green in San Antonio making life difficult for him.
Sure.
There's no Kawhi Leonard. Dejounte Murray was a quality defender, and he's no longer there. So the Spurs are playing at the slowest pace in basketball, but get this. They have the worst defensive rating in the league so far this year, Dan. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense. DeRozan and Aldridge are like okay, but Pau Gasol is getting old. I think this could be a monster blow-up spot for Oladipo. And seeing that he hasn't had any big games yet this year, this could be the one where at 7. Remember, what was my saying on Oladipo last year? Under 8K, I'm playing him like every time. Remember,
exactly. Yep, exactly right.
Under 8K, Oladipo becomes one of my favorite plays. And he's under 8K against the Spurs team that a lot of your normal, just kind of casual fans are going to say, well, I don't want to play him against San Antonio. I have no problem playing him against San Antonio whatsoever. So those are the guys. Again, we'll get to more at small forward because it's mixed up a little bit here. In terms of value, guys like Batum are cheap. Cedi Osman is still cheap against Brooklyn. And while he didn't have a great game last time out, he's sub 6K and he's playing monster minutes every single game, and we love minutes. I haven't looked at his usage yet, but I do know that at least in terms of field goal attempts, he's taken 42 in 3 games. So that's very solid. And outside of Kevin Love, they don't really have much else. But yeah, again, we'll get to more at small forward, but I like this position quite a bit. I think there's a lot to like, and Oladipo probably is my favorite tournament play that people are going to overlook significantly.
Oladipo is somebody who, for your point exactly, remembering last year where you said if he's sub 8K, play him. It's amazing we're living in a world where shooting guard is one that you can say you're enticed by. That's not something that happens often.
Crazy? Yeah, no more positions, right?
Right.
I mean, just no. You know what's kind of weird though about this team? You'll probably find this interesting. Like Westbrook was a guy that last year averaging around 100 touches per game. You know, Ben Simmons, around 100 touches per game. Oladipo leads the Pacers in touches per game with 57. That's, I mean, they're really spreading the ball around a lot. Like that is a lot. That is a very unusually low amount of touches. But you at least have to factor in, okay, well, what does his usage look like with those touches? Well, it's 33% usage. So we're getting a ton of usage here, and he's getting more than enough work. So when you're getting up 20 shots a game, the touches are less important to me because it's really, it's like the same with snap counts, right? If you're Antonio Gates, let's say not in his prime, but when he was still good, and you're only playing 40% of snaps, but you're seeing 11 targets and you're used on passing downs, it doesn't matter that you're not seeing 100% of targets because the volume that you're seeing when you are on the field is more important than somebody like, somebody just name a shitty basketball player that plays 40, like anyone.
Michael Carter Williams on the side.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Perfect example. Right. Or really just anybody that's out there that sure you're seeing 40 minutes, but what are you doing with those minutes? And if you're not touching the ball or getting opportunities, it means nothing to me.
Yep, I think that shooting guard's fun here, and will make. I love Depot. I've really over the past since he's left Oklahoma City, has been a fun guy to track, and somebody here, especially with the small forwards sort of trending down to shooting guard here on DK, makes for some interesting decisions. We go next to small forward, where listen again, you're going to have the power forwards who DK and in the write-up and on the shows, Dave, Adam, Josh, all those guys, and Josh does a good job over there at Osmo of talking more FanDuel as well. With the new changes over there, haven't done a much to dig in, but you have small forward as one of those positions that typically you might punt and try to get cheap at. But on DK, where you have MPE, you're getting the likes of Levert and Doncic now, and DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, Leonard, who are small forward shooting guard. And then you have the power forwards like Durant and James and Giannis, who are all small forward eligible. So it really makes roster construction fun, but also challenging. And you talk about maybe not paying up at point guard. We have some really talented small forwards here, what we would deem small forwards when building a basketball team in, let's say, like 2007. What do you got here? There's lots of upside, lots of scoring here. Are there specific plays on the more expensive side that stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of them, and you're right. I mean, the disclaimer is that we probably talked about a lot of them already, but talking about some of the expensive guys, LeBron James is in a good spot, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this game stayed close. The line on this is 2.5 points right now. Like, Lakers are 2.5-point favorites, which is just kind of crazy. That is wild. That is really, really wild. They're what? They're 0-3, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're 0-3. They lost to San Antonio by a point. They should have beat that San Antonio team that is not very good. They lost to Houston. They lost to Portland. Welcome home, LeBron. I feel like you're going to get one of those games where LeBron just says, okay, I'm taking over. We need a win. And I could see this being that game. I'd blame nobody for playing him whatsoever. And another thing is, LeBron James, it probably sounds silly, like, oh, well, what does Rondo have to do with anything? My guess would be that Rondo probably does have something to do with LeBron James in terms of at least assist rate. I'm looking it up right now because I'm curious. We only have we have a decent, 2 game on, 2 or wait, what do we have? 3 games with Rondo, 1 game without so far. LeBron's assist rate is 19.4% with Rondo on the court this year. How many minutes? Let's see. 49 minutes. His assist rate is, what did I say? 19%. Rondo's is 38%. With Rondo off the court, LeBron James' assist rate is 38%. So that does make a difference. And like Lonzo Ball, yeah, sure. Lonzo Ball is going to dish out some dimes, but Rondo is still just a better facilitator. He's the type of guy that could average easily 10 assists per game on this team. And then you take Ingram off the court. You do have guys like Kyle Kuzma. You still have some quality players on this team. But, yeah, it's a really good spot for LeBron against Phoenix. Trevor Ariza is a shell of his old self. The wing, the defense doesn't even matter here. Do you worry about DeAndre Ayton's rim protection? It's possible, but, again, not really when it comes to not really when it comes to LeBron. And then with Giannis, look, I love Giannis. I think he could win the MVP this year for sure. And that you might say, well, obviously, but there's still a lot of really good players. And I think Giannis, I think there's a very good chance that he could win the MVP. Playing a Sixers team on their second of a back-to-back, Ben Simmons might be out. Embiid is still an elite rim protector, but we saw what Blake Griffin did. Blake Griffin still got to him up around the basket. It's a good spot for Giannis. That's going to be the question. Which one of these expensive guys are we targeting? Because you have Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and James on the slate. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. But right now, I think I'm putting LeBron third just because he seemed willing to defer. Now, if my theory's right and he just decides to take over, then LeBron goes ahead of everybody. But if not, then we don't have an answer to that. You know how this works. We've been doing this long enough. We don't know how it works. I love Simmons. Don't want to pay for him here because of that back. If he even plays, that worries me. Leonard and Doncic, we already talked about. Not on Butler here. Josh Richardson's interesting because this Knicks team is just, dreadfully bad defensively. And I think it's, probably a good spot for him to take advantage of. The Knicks, I do not believe in. I don't believe in their defense whatsoever, even though through the first few games they're middle of the road. But Richardson, do you want to pay that much for? I probably don't, because there's guys below and above him that are just in better spots. Like, I'd probably even rather pay down for Osman. I'd probably pay down maybe even for Nick Batum. And I have to throw out my guy, Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince, again, I'll say it, I think this could be a big-time breakout campaign for him. I believe in him. I think he could finish as the leading scorer on this team. You're seeing very consistent numbers. The only issue that I have is, what are his minutes going to look like? He played, 32 minutes in the opener, then 26, then 23, then 26. But the amazing part, Dan, is that Torian Smith on the year, if you look at the per minute production, the dude is averaging 1.33 fantasy points per minute. Like, he's putting up big numbers here. And I just wish that we could get more reliable playing time from him. I'm still very much interested against Dallas. I think this game sees a ton of scoring and hardly any defense. And for that reason, I like him a lot.
It's again, it's a deep slate, and these over-unders and the pace of play will continue to shake out as the year goes on, but you're going to have some decisions to make on this slate. MPE, especially on DK, will make those intriguing. I'm with you on the Knicks, by the way. As a Knicks fan, having watched them, defensive rating, I think has them 10th to start the year. Again, small sample size.
That'll change.
That will most definitely change. I would say I would eat a hat if they were 10th when the season ended, but we know another DFS personality has done that in the past and didn't come through on it. So, but nonetheless, who I don't know. Who are we talking about? Pete? How you doing, buddy? He listens. I know he listens. But nonetheless, it's just a team that they're fun to watch. But the other night, I wish I'd screen capped it. The lineup they ran out there against the Bucks was Frank Ntilikina and guys that I know because I'm a Knicks fan. Like,
wasn't Ntilikina at the 3 though?
Yeah, he was at the 3 or maybe the 4 at the time, because it was like Dotson and like it was just they're a bad team. They're a bad.
Burke, Hardaway, Ntilikina did.
It was none of that. It was no one. It was the bottom 5 of the roster were out there against the Bucks. They closed the gap. They were down 12. They closed it to 2.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the starting lineup.
No. I'm talking about this second quarter lineup they ran out there, which was, and Ron Baker took an elbow from a teammate, and God, it was just bad. Anyway,
it's just they're somehow staying competitive though.
Which is, hey, that's all you can hope for. They haven't signed Porzingis. He'll walk eventually, I assume, and he'll end up being an all-pro.
Walk literally or figuratively?
That's fair. That is fair. Let's talk power forwards next. Speaking of Kristaps, we go to power forward, and we have Giannis and LeBron and Kevin Durant all eligible here. Then you get into the MPE to the center spot. You do have Love and Aldridge at 88 and 8,500. Then it drops off significantly, where you do have Bobby Portis at 6,900 from the Chicago Bulls, Draymond at 69 as well, Kyle Kuzma also at the same price point. Intrigued to hear your breakdown of those 3, if that price point 1 makes sense for power forward, and 2, any of those pique your interest at all. And then we get quickly and sharply into 5K and 4K plays on DraftKings specifically. How does power forward shake out for you?
Hey, by the way, Taurean Prince has a 32% usage rate this year. Like that's pretty incredible, right? When you consider like that he's only getting that many minutes per game. I'm just like hoping that it's related to. I'm just hoping it's related to blowouts, not to harp on it, but I just feel like there's no reason this dude shouldn't be getting more run. I mean, if you take players that are averaging 25 minutes or more, this guy is like top 30 in usage among the whole league. Or no, I'm sorry, not top 30. Taurean Prince is, let's see, he's 24th in usage among the whole league. So that's crazy if you're at 6,500. So just to throw that out there, I thought it was pretty interesting. And, if you get 32, 33 minutes from him, man, you're really in for a good game. Okay. Wendell Carter Jr., by the way, has power forward eligibility now. I think that's pretty interesting. You're looking at a Charlotte team that he's facing with a center rotation of guys like Cody Zeller and Hernan Gomez, and I mean, really anyone else that they decide to toss into the mix, whether it's Kaminsky seeing a couple minutes a game or Bismack Biyombo, like who's 6'8". I mean, this is really not a particularly good defensive center team. Cody Zeller's not terrible, but he certainly doesn't scare you either. And I was very encouraged by Wendell Carter Jr.'s minutes. Played 32 minutes last time out. Not a great game, but 32 minutes at that price tag is very appealing. And this is another game that I expect to stay competitive, right? Two teams that aren't very good. Charlotte's a 3-point favorite, a 231.5 total, which again, Dan, as you said, it's just ridiculous. I mean, just absolutely insane that we're seeing these type of numbers. Marvin Bagley the third is also pretty cheap. I like Carter over him a little bit more because he's cheaper. And I think Bagley, you're not looking at those monster games that he posted against the Pelicans. And his minutes have been all over the place, so he's tough to trust. I think Carter actually should see a consistent 28 to 32 minutes going forward. But Jaren Jackson is the guy in that 5K range that I like quite a bit. You're going to get, look, I think your floor from him is around like 20 to 23, but he also offers a nice ceiling because he can score. He can get some rebounds. He's kind of like the rich man right now as a rookie, kind of like the rich man, J. Michael Green. But he's obviously going to be so much better than him. So please don't take that as a type of, as a negative comparison. I'm just saying from a fantasy standpoint, being that they play on the same team, you have kind of similar production thus far. And I think until he develops into what I expect to be a really great player, he's going to be the guy that gives you like the 12.7 rebound, a block, and a few assists type of game. But I still think at that price point, he's very appealing. And then, man, you just have to keep looking at Kevin Love here. You know, Kevin Love is going to continue to get monster usage, monster minutes. Even in games that haven't been competitive, that have turned into blowouts in the fourth quarter, he's still seeing a ton of run. You know, his usage rate this season is through the roof and should continue to stay through the roof. Right now, it's what, around 30%. But you'd be crazy if Kevin Love finishes with a sub 30% usage rate at the end of the season. I will be shocked, Dan.
But will you eat a hat? That's the question.
I'll eat part of the hat. I'm not sure I can. Yeah, I'm not sure I can eat.
The brim would be hard to eat. I mean, let's be honest. If we're talking about like a baseball,
very
game,
difficult.
The brim would cause some problems.
Very, very difficult. And here's the great thing. Kevin Love, not only does he lead the team in touches, but he leads the team in touches by a wide margin, which just tells you that, like, it doesn't matter if it's Sexton or Hill playing at the point. I mean, Love is just getting so many touches and so much work. You look at his front court touches, his post-ups per game, 11.3 post-ups per game. You have to love that because you know that he's very capable of scoring there. He is fourth in basketball in post-ups behind Aldridge, who always leads the league in post-ups, Griffin, Anthony Davis, and then you have Kevin Love. All of these numbers are very encouraging. And at 8,800 against Brooklyn, I really like it. Yes, he's going to see some Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, but I think Hollis-Jefferson's going to be rusty. I mean, this is also a guy that, you know, Hollis-Jefferson, I don't think he played like any of the preseason, right? He may have, but I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think he did. And if he did, it was very few or very little run. So I think the minutes will be limited here. So normally that would make it a slightly difficult matchup, but Kevin Love, just with the amount of work he's getting, it's so hard not to like him. He is 8,800, but I think that's a fair price point. LaMarcus Aldridge, look, I love LaMarcus Aldridge. He was my top play the other day, and yes, it went into overtime, but he certainly didn't disappoint. I think he finished with like 60 fantasy points, 62 fantasy points on 22 field goal attempts. His usage rate is 26%. Again, that will climb because him and DeRozan are the only guys that are really going to do much at all on that team. He's going to post up. He's going to kill you from the elbow. He's going to beat you up in the mid-range. And I'm not worried about this matchup with Indiana. But I will say that I think Kevin Love is a better option here. And Kuzma's prices come up. But one thing I love about Kuzma, and that I was running some numbers the other day, I'm big on high percentage shooters.
Yep.
Especially, when they're a forward position, which is why I've always loved Giannis. Well, Kuzma is attempting like more than a third of his shots within 3 feet of the basket. And that's really nice to see. Like you're getting a guy that is not, it's either that or 3-pointers. And those are the two best shots you want your players taking. So with Ingram out, with Rondo out, with guys injured, I think Kyle Kuzma, even at this price against Phoenix, makes for another really solid play once again.
All right, let's close it out with some center. And as I said, check out to awesemo.com. We are here on the early bird, and that is your promo code, no space, early bird, to get 1 free week of awesemo.com content. No Fantasy Cruncher projections involved there. Sorry, Fantasy Cruncher optimizer in there. So you get all the Awesemo projections, the letter grades from Alex himself, and then obviously all of the content that's behind the paywall. We are in front of the paywall for our shows for the foreseeable future. So you get the strategy show, you get the deeper dive, and you get live up to lock. And then you get a ton of NFL stuff going on as well throughout the week. Three Fellows Talking Football every Thursday. You get Andrew and Ben and Lofty getting ready for what is now week 8. Amazing how quickly that season has rolled along. Center position is stacked. Well, it's deep. I don't know that's necessarily stacked on this specific slate. One where you have some upside plays on the more expensive end. You have Embiid on a back-to-back. I haven't seen any mention of him being restricted this year, right, Lofty, in being back-to-back? Yeah.
No, there's nothing. I mean, just look at his minutes.
Yep.
Like there's nothing there. He is he's and also think about it. He was during the preseason, no limitations. There was nothing during the offseason that we heard about that would have been of any concern. Everything points in favor of Joel Embiid getting the run that we expect him to. And by that, I mean, look, he played the entire overtime period yesterday. That is a huge sign. Now, because of that, is it possible that he sees a few fewer minutes? Yeah, it's possible because we haven't seen him play an overtime game yet this year, followed by a back-to-back. He almost played 39 minutes, but I think you still get 32 at least from him here.
All right, let's talk about the position at hand. You have Embiid at the top at 10-1. Then it's a pretty stark drop-off down to Kevin Love, Aldridge at 88, 8,500, Karl-Anthony Towns, DeAndre Jordan, Rudy Gobert at 7,500, Whiteside, who's leaning towards probable here at 7,400. Ayton seen his price tag crawl up to 7,300. And then there's my man Enes Kanter, who just continues to rack up double-doubles to start the year at 7K. Marc Gasol sandwiched in there as well. Lots to digest here at the top end. Obviously, center typically has some upside in the mid-range and even on the cheaper side simply from rebound and, as you said, high percentage shot volume here. Lots to digest quickly, but who are some of your favorites here?
So let's be clear. Embiid has 30 points, 30 real points in 3 straight games, 30 or more. His fantasy totals on the year 44, 60, 52, and 67. He is in the same, I won't say he's like Harden, Giannis, Westbrook category, but he's very close now. I mean, you're talking about a guy that every night you expect at least 50, and he can give you more than that. Now, while I think that he won't be limited, I am worried that he played 39 minutes and he attempted 20 shots and played a physical game. This will be a spot that I stay away from, even though the matchup against Brolo and this Milwaukee front court doesn't scare me. Would I be surprised to see a big game from him? No, but there are just so many good high-priced options on this slate that I think it is safe to go away from him. Now, if Simmons is out, it certainly does make our decision a little bit tougher. but I'm still not sure that I'm going to go there. So that's where I'm at now. Enes Kanter, just been a monster. I think I mentioned this in my deep dive article the other day that on the season, Enes Kanter leads the league in rebound chances. He dropped down to third after that last game, second, but he's still at 24 rebound opportunities per game. That's a huge number. He really is one of the most polished, talented offensive centers in the league. It just comes down to his defense. But you're getting the minutes from Enes Kanter, and that's the biggest thing. Like, he's played 30 plus in 3 of 4 and 27 in the first game, which was a blowout. So I think at 7K, he's still very viable. Now, against Whiteside, is it a little bit of a tougher matchup? Yes. But I actually think now Whiteside, the injuries, I'm not sure what's going on there. And I don't know how much of the down minutes had to do with foul trouble in recent games. But if we expect Whiteside to play 30-plus minutes here at 7,400, he's one of my favorite plays on the slate. I think it's just going to be really tough to ignore him here. He's going to have a ton of shot blocking opportunities. Yes, Kanter's a good rebounder, but so is Whiteside. But Kanter's also a terrible defender, and I think Whiteside will just be able to get easy buckets at will. And 7,400 is just too cheap. So let's keep an eye on him, because if he plays, this is quite a nice spot for sure. So I think both centers in that game actually make sense. Kevin Love's eligible here too. Wendell Carter Jr. is eligible here. I mentioned Jaren Jackson being eligible here. Draymond Green's been one of these guys that, through the first few games of the season has been pretty disappointing, right? Hasn't eclipsed 40 fantasy points, has 30 exactly or fewer in 3 of 4. I'm just not too high on him right now, man. He's not shooting at all. His field goal attempts are 4, 4, 12, and 6. I really don't like that at all. I mean, I think DeAndre Ayton is another fine play. This guy's been putting up great numbers in his rookie campaign. He had one bad game against Denver, but again, that Denver defense and Nikola Jokic have actually done a pretty solid job of shutting things down. They ranked number 1 in defensive rating to start the year, and it's not even close. Like, they're way ahead of everybody else. Of course, it'll balance out, but their defense has looked fantastic. And that is with them still playing at a top 15 pace. So Ayton against LA is a nice spot. I also, look, I've said that JaVale McGee, I was so happy to see him play 28 minutes. If this guy he played 22, 20, and 28. And with Ingram out, we know that Luke Walton has to move the rotations up a little bit. Kuzma might have been playing some 5, but play a little less because Ingram was out. And McGee played 28 minutes. If he plays 28 minutes again, like, I'm on board. I just think that this guy is a phenomenal per minute producer, has been for his entire career. This season alone, he's averaging what? He's averaging 1.43 fantasy points per minute. Yeah, he's a little bit more expensive than you'd like, but I don't think he's out of consideration. People just write him off, but I don't know why. He's just got so much potential with the few minutes that he plays. Dude, if you're getting 28 minutes from McGee, you can almost lock him into 30 fantasy points, and I really, really like that. But I don't think he's a must by any chance. Just pointing out that I think that the guy still has plenty of value, even though he's above 5K.
I mean, if you're going to start telling me that anybody like JaVale McGee is a must, we may have to rethink this arrangement we have here. But
dude, I'm telling you, I like him a lot more than a lot of people do.
Well, no, don't get me wrong. And again, in the situation, in the context, I've been a fan to start the year, and I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity, and that's what matters, right? Like that's where it all comes down to. It's just the idea of must and his name in the same sentence.
Sure, but check this out.
Strikes me somewhat odd.
Look, I got you. Don't get me wrong, dude. I got you. But check this out, because this is really quite cool. He is a really quality shot blocker, right? He has blocked half of the shots that were attempted on the rim against him this year, at the rim against him that year or this year. That's awesome. Like, he blocked 9 of 20 attempts at the rim. When he gets the opportunity, this guy can swat them, and that's something great to see. And we, you know how much we love peripheral stats. He's going to get easy buckets assisted from LeBron. He's posted 13 plus points in all 3 games, 6 plus rebounds in all of them, and he has 9 blocks on the year. So, yeah, would it be crazy to see JaVale McGee finished with like 16, 10, and 4 blocks? Not at all. It's actually, not only is it possible, but in some matchups, if he plays 25 plus minutes, it's probable, which is wild but true.
Yep, I don't disagree with you, and I think that he may be somebody I come back to at that price point for the upside. This Lakers team is going to be one that's tough to figure. You were talking before about Rondo, Lonzo Ball, obviously LeBron here. It's just going to be one over the course of the season. It's going to be tough to track and to understand really game over game where it's all going to come together. But I think McGee here at 5,300 makes more sense than I'd prefer him to make, is I guess the best way to say it. With that said, though, any final thoughts on this slate before we close out the podcast?
No, there's a lot to like. And I think more value will open up as the day goes on. I think even though you have guys like Harden, LeBron, Giannis, I'll throw Embiid into the mix because he's above 10K too. I think one of the, right now, the way I'm looking at roster construction would be probably one of those guys, and then try and get, maybe an 8K and a couple 7K guys in there, because, Levine and Doncic, and I mentioned Oladipo, and those type of guys are just in spots that to me are very difficult to ignore.
All right, we're going to leave it there. As always, you can check out awesemo.com by heading on over using the promo code EARLYBIRD, which is the name of this podcast, and that will get you 1 week for free. So it does roll over if you do not cancel. So I want to give you the full lowdown there, that if you sign up through the process and you decide not to go in and cancel itself, it will roll over to a monthly subscription. If you want to just do the week, make sure to get over to your account page and cancel everything over there. Each and every day here, Monday through Saturday, you get the early bird. It's Dave and myself. It's Emac and Adam. You get Emac and Adam on Thursday morning. Dave and I will be back Friday. You get Emac and Adam again Saturday morning. And you get the deep dive every day. You get the deeper dive with Adam and Lofty breaking down each slate of 4 games or more. Is that where we're at? Or 5 games or more for the deeper dive?
I don't think we figured it out yet, but it should be. 4 or more would make the most sense. Yeah.
So, well, pending still, but we'll say 4 or more.
Actually, we have a scheduling meeting. Josh and I have a scheduling meeting. We're going to iron out any details that have yet to be taken care of today. So,
do you hear this guy? Scheduling meeting.
Yeah.
What happened?
You got to get it done, baby.
Lofty went Hollywood on me at some point. Find him on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D. Find me at Dan Strafford. Also, find me weeping quietly to myself about the fact that the mouse is still here in my basement. I will be figuring that out over the next couple of days. Owning a home's awesome. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, it's something, ain't it?
It is something, that is for damn sure. With that said, as always, we wish you the best of luck on this Wednesday slate. We'll be back with you Friday morning, Dave and myself, right here on the DFS Early Bird.